Now, welcome to another edition of Battle of the Heroes and Villains, where this time we'll be taking a look at the results of the poll that asked you to rate or grade Chewbacca. We'll then be comparing him to all the other characters we've done thus far, before I then read and respond to some of your comments. But first, if you'd like, you can already head down to the comments below and nominate or vote for which character we do next. Just respond to my pinned comment down there with a character name, or vote with a thumbs up if the one you'd like to see is already there. And after 24 hours or so, the one with the most votes will be the winner, and the character we do next. Okay, so let's now take a look at the results for Chewbacca, and we'll see that 52% of people gave him an A, 34% of people thought he was a B tier character, 11% then said C, which left 1% to say D, and 1% to say F. And so when we do all the math here, Chewbacca ends up with a score of 4.35, which puts him into 9th place overall, and just ahead of Anakin Skywalker, who would no doubt think these results are outrageous and unfair, as will some of his fans, I'd imagine. But anyway, as for my brief initial thoughts here, this was yet again one of those times where I could have seen this going many different ways. I mean, I think most everyone likes or loves Chewbacca. He's a very lovable character in general, so much so that it wouldn't have shocked me if this would have been like the first character to get 0% in the F column, which wouldn't mean nobody voted F, it just means that not enough people voted F to round the percentage up to 1. But at the same time, if we're being honest here, in the movies at least he's not the most well-developed character ever, something we'll no doubt talk more about in the comments. And speaking of those, let's now get to them, but not without first, of course, once again thanking everyone who votes and comments on the polls, as well as those of you who, of course, watch the videos. And once again, I'm sorry this one took so long for me to do. It's been well over a week, I think, since I put this poll up. I've just had a lot going on with the sequel trilogy project this previous week or so, but hopefully things are settling down on that front and I can get back to doing these at a more consistent rate. Anyway, let's now start as we always do with the top rated comment, which this time came to us from Power LOS, who said, "He's not an A if the sequel trilogy is canon because it treated him like a pet instead of a character. He should have gotten the Falcon instead of Rey. I don't know what the Star Wars equivalent of a will is, but Han would have said in it, if I die, Chewie gets the Falcon." And maybe I imagined it, but I could have sworn I read in one of the new canon books that Chewbacca was actually the owner of the Falcon and not Rey. And perhaps someone out there can help me out and tell me which book that was in, or maybe which comic, or if I'm dead wrong about this, but I swear this was covered somewhere. Either way, even if that is the case, if I didn't imagine all this, the Rise of Skywalker still very much implies that the Falcon belongs to Rey. By the way, she gets mad towards the beginning of the movie when Poe brings it back literally on fire, after light speed skipping with it and all of that. So even if some book did say Chewie is the owner of the Falcon, J.J. Abrams didn't seem to get that memo. Either that or he's just tying it back to what Han said to Rey in The Force Awakens when he wanted to bring her on board or part of his crew because she knew and appreciated the Falcon. In other words, maybe she does care about it even if it isn't hers, which certainly could and would make sense. Anyway, what doesn't make sense is the idea that Han, in his will or whatever, would leave the Falcon to Rey, or that if there is no will or equivalent, that anyone would just think that it should default to Rey of all people. He's known her for like a day when he dies, and sure, you can grow to like someone quickly and become fast friends, but you don't change your will a day after meeting someone. And I guess you can try to argue that for the sake of the story, it makes sense for Rey to get the Falcon, I guess. But realistically, Han would have left it to Chewbacca, his lifelong friend and companion. And if not him, he would have left it to Lando. In fact, it would have been awesome to see in Episode 8, perhaps, Lando gets the quote-unquote keys to the Falcon handed to him by Leia or Chewbacca, perhaps. And at some point in Episode 9, maybe Lando then gives the keys to Rey. But to just make it seem like she gets the Falcon just because is very odd. Okay, let's now move on to this comment from Red-Haired Shanks, who said, "I give him a B-. I truly think people give A to everyone that is a likable Star Wars character. I like Chewie, but there isn't much to him. He was a bit in the prequels and Clone Wars, it was nice seeing him. In Solo, we got a bit more depth, but not enough to make me say he is an A character. He was an enslaved Wookiee, witty, funny, and likable, gentle giant, that's all. In the original trilogy and sequel trilogy, he is just there shooting, shouting, and growling. I just like his dynamic with Han. Don't get me wrong, I like Chewie, but that's all there is to him." We also had this comment from Joseph Joester who said, "Who doesn't love Chewie? Can display so many emotions without even speaking." And this one from Caleb who said, "He's a classic, and the lack of an understandable language makes him even funnier than if he spoke basic sometimes." Then also this one from Saltwater Aquarium Nerd who said, "B. Chewbacca plays his role as Han's sidekick quite well, especially considering that we don't hear Chewbacca utter one word throughout the entire franchise. Even though we can't hear his words, we can understand Chewie's emotions through his actions and voice tone. Although, because of this, it is hard to develop Chewbacca as a character, but I think many of the fans are fine the way he is." And I think a big reason why Chewbacca works at all, or as well as he does, is indeed because of Han Solo. The interactions between the two, the way Harrison Ford in the original trilogy just managed to talk to him and treat him like any other character or person really. I know a lot of people left comments like he's just Han's pet or dog or something like that, but that's never ever how Han treats him, and that's the big reason why, again, Chewbacca works. And that's of course to take absolutely nothing away from the performance of the late great Peter Mayhew, or even what Jonas Suotamo has done performance-wise as Chewbacca, especially in the movie Solo, where I thought he was really good. And I'm glad we never know exactly what Chewie is saying. I'm glad there are no subtitles for him. That again, it's the reactions or responses from the others that tell us what he's saying. I think that works far better and ultimately makes him a more likable character. Alright, let's now move on to this comment from Evan Askew, who said, "His entire purpose is to be a side character, C for me." We also had this comment from Ishan Madhawk who said, "Hey Thor, I'm the guy whose character suggestion is the inception for this vote, and I love democracy. I am rather perplexed by the urge I feel to award Chewie an A. He was mostly just the comic relief and Han Solo's conscience in the OT, and that left him a static character, which to me is justification enough for C. But it's Chewie. I guess this is because he is one of the mascots for the series after all. It would be fun to see what Chewie stacks up relative to the other two mascots, R2 and C-3PO, whenever their vote swings by." Also had this comment from Jordan Smith who said, "As much as I love him and how much they get out of a character that cannot speak basic, I give him a D. The reason why is I find him to be less of a character and more of a prop. He is there to help Han and provide comic relief. Oh, and a convenient plot device to infiltrate the prison block. So as much as I love him, gotta be honest and give the grade he deserves in the movies. Now his character does get a lot more polish in the EU, but he has always been the sidekick. I would have loved to have seen more of him." Then this one from Loch Ness Lonster who said, "Chewbacca is always a fun character, and I love when he's on screen, but there's really no arc or important role he plays. He's always a side character, and that's fine, that's exactly where he belongs. The character of Gungi is really what I want from Chewbacca, but obviously that's not what would happen." And yes, of course, not every character needs to have a grand or intricate story or arc. Some characters are there just to serve the overall story. Though, that said, it would have been nice if the sequel trilogy had done a little bit more with him, which kind of brings us to this comment from Sheev Palpatine who said, "Chewbacca before Disney, a character and hero. Chewbacca after Disney, pet and Uber driver." And actually, I think Chewie in The Force Awakens is fine, good even, because he again has Han or Harrison Ford there to interact with and play off of. In The Last Jedi, he has a scene with the Porgs, but otherwise, yeah, he's basically just an Uber driver. He has to be. After all, why else, unless he's just a paid driver, would he agree to dropping Rey off on the Supremacy? Why would he go along with this plan to, I guess, save Ben Solo when 2 days ago Chewie watched Ben murder Han and then he shot him in the abdomen for it? Did he really think that Rey, who barely knows Ben, was going to be able to go in there and save him when his own father could not? And that's if he even cares about saving Ben at this point, again considering he just killed Han, his best friend, days earlier. That then brings us to this comment from Cody Adams who said, "The crying scene in The Rise of Skywalker easily makes this a B, it was that good." And yes, the Chewie reacting to the death of Leia was a heart-wrenching scene that was hard to watch in a good way. Otherwise, again, not much was really done with him in The Rise of Skywalker other than pretending they killed him off, which lasted like 5 minutes. Oh, and he got a medal too, because Chewie, I guess, had been bitter about not getting a medal for all these years. Even though in a book in the new canon, it said Chewie did get a medal that day, that Leia couldn't put it around his neck because it was too thick or something like that. Alright, and now let's get to just a few more final comments before wrapping this up, starting with this one from Big Dan, who said, "Anyone saying he isn't really a character clearly hasn't watched his incredible character development in the holiday special." Then this one from Bruce Wayne, who said, "One of the very few Star Wars characters that are universally recognized. Star Wars fan or not, everyone knows Chewbacca." Also this one from CT1117 Blast, who said, "Chewbacca has been in 3 wars, so he has my respect." Then this one from Harmon 2, who said, "When I was at a convention's cosplay deathmatch, Chewbacca took the crowd by storm as the unanimous victor. I have never heard such a loud audience screaming in hype until Chewie showed up. He's iconic for a reason." Then this comment from Javier Miller, who said, "Let's be real, he's the character that everyone would want to be their best friend." Next, this one from Zero Spy, who said, "I want my arms, thank you very much." And finally, this one from Zetacron, who said, "I feel like Chewbacca is a character people will remember fondly for nostalgia's sake, but in terms of his character in canon, there isn't a whole lot there." And I do have to agree, there isn't a whole lot there in terms of story for Chewbacca. Yet at the same time, I can't imagine the story of Star Wars without him. As I said, not every character needs to have this amazing, mind-blowing story arc. Some can just be there for the sake of the story, or for the sake of the other characters. I mean, can you imagine Han without Chewie? Would Han be the same character without Chewie? And that's the real key. It's what Chewbacca does for the characters around him and the story itself that makes him important. And it's also those few classic moments when he does shine, when he does or reacts to others in a way that only he can. That also further endears him to us. And when it all comes together, it does indeed make him a memorable, iconic character. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about Chewbacca, or what I or anyone else had to say about him in this video. Or also feel free to nominate or vote for which character we do next. Either way, head down to the comments below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.